Hello and welcome to the Heat Check podcast, the Miami Herald's Miami Heat podcast. I'm David Wilson, and I'm joined, as always, on the other line by Anthony Chiang, out in OKC, starting off this Heat road trip. Anthony, what's going on?
I'm not in Miami anymore. No,
No,
definitely not in Miami
I see you're wearing
anymore.
long sleeves right now. You're wearing like a sweater there.
It's kind of cold
I
in
got
Oklahoma
a shirt
City.
with turtles on right now. So the dichotomy of America right here.
I'm jealous of you right now. I'm
Yeah,
jealous. It's
pretty
pretty
nice
cold
out.
out here. It's like 30s. Like
Yeah,
Oklahoma
that's
City,
tough.
I feel like that's cold, but we'll get through it.
All right, so Heat on the road, and we're not overreacting this week, as we promised we wouldn't. Not that there was a whole lot to really get excited about with the Heat this week. 2-1 since we last talked, but with a loss to the Spurs at home, who were maybe the worst team in the league. So, not great stuff for Miami. They come back on Monday and at least get a win against the Pacers, who I don't think is like really impressing anyone, but the Pacers have been pretty good this year and are a team that the Heat is chasing in the playoff race. Heat will play tonight, kicking off a three-game trip. Yeah, three-game trip in Oklahoma City. So that game will have already happened by the time you guys are all listening to this. Anthony, as you joked before we started, we're talking about the same thing for the eighth straight week because other than the fact that we've occasionally vacillated between thinking, maybe they figured some things out and not, it is kind of like status quo for the Heat. I'd say like slight improvements here and there with the roster. Clearly, this team looks better when Jimmy's out there. He won't play tonight. Bam, I think has been kind of playing some of the best basketball of his career over the last few weeks here. The defense is slowly trending in the right direction as it has been for a while. Let's just do your temperature check. How are we feeling right now?
I think it's incredible that Eric Spoelstra continues to manufacture top 10 defenses. They have the 8th best defense right now.
Yeah.
And they've played basically zone for most of the year. They've had a bunch of injuries, and we talked about this, David. But it's pretty incredible how you look up and they're a top 10 defense. It doesn't seem that way, but they're number 8 right now. So that's impressive. That's a positive, right? But the offense has just been terrible. Just awful.
They win 87-82 on what was that, Monday night?
Monday night? Yeah, Monday. I don't know.
Yeah.
My days are mixed up. But they have the 4th worst offense in the NBA at the moment. That is just, obviously that's not a formula for success. We've talked about them having a top 10 defense and just an average offense. That would probably get them a top 4 seed.
Yeah.
But when they have one of the league's worst offenses, that's a big issue. And, some of that is injuries, but some of that is, look, they've been healthy for the past week for the most part, and they haven't really been any better on that end. The three-point shooting has been really bad, huge drop-off. If they just shoot close to what they shot last year, they probably do have an average offense right now. I think the three-point shooting has a lot to do with it, which we've touched on, I feel like, for the past 2 months. But, I think that's where things stand right now. Their defense is trending in their positive direction, playing more man defense, which is good. But the offense, my God, not good at all.
Yeah, it's some of it is, like you said, the 3-point percentage. I think it's kind of it feels like it's a team-wide Duncan Robinson situation, right? That we talked about so much throughout last year, where we just kept the confidence that it was going to tick up and get closer to normal, and it never obviously got back to where he was. Basically the couple of years that got him his giant contract, but it did trend up in the right direction. And I still feel that way about the 3-point shooting for this group, is that it's kind of normalized. They could basically change nothing and do nothing better other than shoot better the rest of the way, or shoot basically expectation, and they would have probably a top 20 offense by the end of the year, because they're just not going to shoot this poorly all year. I don't think
so,
but yeah, either way, even if they shoot the lights out the rest of the way, and stay healthy, this clearly is just not, not a good enough offensive group to be more, like you said, maybe they could be a top 4 seed with the defense they have if they get their offense to middle of the pack, but to actually do anything meaningful, it's, it kind of, I don't want to say the the league is like past them, but obviously that is something we talked about where a lot of their competition in the East really upgraded, and obviously like I think Boston going on their incredible run to start the year like made the gap between the Heat and teams like Boston and Milwaukee and obviously Cleveland, as we've said, is probably number 3 right now, feel wider than it has been in the last couple of years, where it felt like the Heat was in that upper echelon. But I mean, the offense, like the league's offenses just keep getting better and better, right? And the Heat's not, obviously is worse, but even if they were the same as they were last year, it would probably be, I don't know where their offensive rating would rank in the league this year if you just transpose it over. But, offenses get, everyone can shoot, right? Everyone has 2 or 3 guards who can create, in the Heat, who have always been doing it, as we've said a lot, unorthodoxly, with the 2 best players not being 3-point shooters and your 2 best players being a pass-first center and Jimmy Butler. I don't even know how to define Jimmy Butler as a player, but they've always done it unorthodox. And you're like we said, I think we talked about this last week. You're starting to feel a little bit of it this year, where just you need a guy. Like you're leaning on a lot of undrafted guys and 2-way guys, and it was a great story for a while. But right now you're still feeling it, where it's not working the way obviously that it has in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think if they would have shoot the same percentage as they did last year, which obviously was an NBA best, they probably would have like at least 5 more wins right now, which is easy to say. It's pretty like simplistic.
Yeah, they played a lot of close games. So.
They played a lot of close games, and I mean that's the difference between being 5 games under 500 and 10 games over 500. Like that's a huge difference. So if you want to point to one thing that I think has been the biggest difference from last year, I think it's 3-point shooting. I mean, pretty much everybody on the roster, every shooter on the roster, is taking a step back, other than Caleb Martin. And I've talked to guys about it and like why it's happening, and it's hard for them to explain, but like Max and Caleb both said that they're not as many threes are coming into flow, which is how this offense plays. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the assist rate on the made threes, it is down significantly from last year. So they're more self-created threes, which is not really how this team generates those type of shots. So that, I think that's part of it. But then we look at the offense as a whole. Like it is kind of surprising because look at Bam Adebayo. He's having basically one of the best seasons of his career offensively. Mm-hmm. Tyler Hero doing what Tyler Hero does, kind of what you expect. Jimmy having one of the most efficient offensive seasons of his career. Up until last game, they had 3 guys averaging 20 or more points. I think Tyler now is like just under that, but like I think they were the only team, or maybe definitely one of the only.
Yeah, I mean,
teams.
when's the last time they had that? Like they even do that in the Big 3 era? Like I don't know.
And like they're still bottom 5 offense, and I think a lot of that is just the balance of the roster. Like they're getting pretty much nothing from the bench.
Right.
Second lowest scoring bench in the NBA. After last year, they led the league in bench scoring, mostly because of Tyler Hero. But just the balance of the roster just seems off, right? Like you have those 3 top heavy, you're top heavy with those 3 guys, and after that, you're not really getting much from anybody. And I think they're trying to find the right mix, the right combinations, but they really haven't yet offensively.
Yeah, which when we talking about the same things over and over again, I think we had this pretty much exact same conversation last year. That last year, that the whole story behind this team was they could plug in anyone, and it worked. Remember the Kyle Guy era? Like it was just like random guys they were picking up off the street during that. They weathered that COVID December, January, where everyone was missing guys, and obviously Bam missed a lot of time early in the year, and Kyle Lowry didn't play a lot, and Jimmy missed his requisite 15 to 20 games, and none of it mattered. And that's just has not been the case this year. And again, they were playing, I think, with some really thin margins because of the way they were built. They were building the roster partially out of necessity, right? I mean, like it's really hard to, when you're a contender year in and year out, which the Heat mostly has been for basically the entire Jimmy Butler era. It's really hard to get good role players unless you're getting like veteran minimum guys, which the Heat really has not done, or you're nailing every fringe acquisition, whether that be a draft, late first round draft picks, which the Precious pick was a good pick and they used it to to turn it into Kyle Lowry, and the Jovic pick I think we both think is going to be a good pick, but he's just not an everyday contributor, obviously right now. And then they nailed so many second and undrafted guys, but that's like a really hard. That's really hard to keep doing over and over again, and again, I think that more than anything, and just the fact that Jimmy Butler probably hasn't played as much as he'd probably like, and all that kind of stuff is above all else, I think what this team's issues are. It's interesting because when we talk about the Heat in the offseason, so much of it, and not, we obviously talked a lot about the role players because of one of the big questions this Heat team had coming in the season was how are they going to replace PJ Tucker? But so much of the talk about what do the Heat need to add, it comes down to stars. And right now it kind of doesn't feel like, as long as Jimmy is healthy and Tyler's clearly trending in the right direction, it doesn't feel like they need like another big gun, right? They just need some depth pieces. And in some ways that is easier to get around the trade deadline, right? Like the Heat do it every year, right? Whether it's Andre Iguodala, Victor Oladipo, I think would have qualified in that moment. There's who else am I forgetting? They've had a lot over the last couple of years. Trevor Ariza, right?
Jay Crowder.
Yeah. But in some ways that's harder to do because those guys, the hit rate is, if you trade for Bradley Beal, he's going to be good, right? If you trade for Trevor Ariza, he might ultimately be kind of like a non-factor, and that's what I think.
And Trevor Ariza was one that didn't really work out.
Right? Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, for every Jay Crowder or, even Victor Oladipo, I would say is mostly worked out for what they did for that deal. There's a Trevor Ariza, or Andre Iguodala was important, but ultimately, like, he was not a real difference maker, I don't think, for that team. Like, it's hard to build a bench, and especially with the Heat, adding one guy would make a big difference, right? Or getting one guy to play better would make a big difference just because it knocks everyone down a peg, right, in the level of importance. But that's hard to find. In some ways, like I said, harder to find than a star, where the challenge is how do you put a deal together. This is how do you find the guy, know he's the right fit, know he's know that he is a B player or a C plus player who will be accentuated by what you do rather than an A or A minus player who's just like is going to be good or at least pretty good in any context.
Yeah, and I think your point is a good one where the starting lineup has been really, really good together.
Like you said, they have three guys averaging 20 points a game, basically.
And
then you throw in Caleb Martin. Like, it's weird because I think we probably talked about this too, but the fact that the big question this team had was how are they going to replace PJ Tucker? Well, Caleb Martin's been like,
that to me is the least of their problems.
Better than PJ Tucker, right? Like
that's the least of their problems. I think the Heat made the right call by keeping Caleb over PJ. If that was if you had to choose between one, like I think they made the right call. He's younger. He's a player that continues to improve. He's obviously shown growth in his game this year. I think maybe the only criticism you have is like Caleb off the bench would be great, right? Like, it'd be nice to have him as bench. That's the thing. Like
Caleb from your eighth man to your fifth starter, basically.
Fifth starter, right? Like the starting lineup, outscoring teams by 10.6 points per 100 possessions, which is dominant. Like that's among the best in the NBA. You can't ask for much more from them. But the bench, that's where they need to add depth. Right now, Eric Spoelstra's trusting 8 guys. Gabe Vincent out. 8 guys, pretty much. And Haywood Highsmith isn't playing. Drawing a blank. But I mean, he's not trusting many guys right now. And really, like, you look at Dwayne Denman's on-off, like, bless him, right? He's playing through his foot pain, and, like, he's toughing it out. But his minutes have been not good. Right, like the Heat are being outscored by 10.3 points per 100 possessions. If they just got a guy who would keep it even, like just keep it level when Bam is out, they'd be so much better. Like with Bam in the game, they're fine. They're one of the best teams in the East when Bam's in the game. But when he's out of the game, those 12 to 15 minutes a game, that's where everything goes sideways. And I think like everyone wants the big name, right, for this team, but if this front office found a way to trade for a very serviceable big man or just a couple bench players that could really make an impact, that could be the difference with them being like a play-in team and a team that has home court in the first round. Truly, like that's how thin the margin is right now for this roster.
So that kind of brings us to the topic I know we both wanted to focus on, and it is, with this team struggling, obviously a team with expectations, as we kind of alluded to, like eventually, we're still a long way from the trade deadline, but eventually, if this team keeps kind of treading water in this regard, where they got a real good chance to get above 500 this week, obviously 3 road games, but against the 3 worst teams in the West, like, let's say they're a couple games above 500 when we get to the new year. It's gonna kind of feel like that if they, they're gonna have a decision to make, right? Are they gonna just say, all right, we'll ride this out and see where these guys can get us and reassess in the off season, or they're gonna have a question, like I said, well, it's hard. It's gonna be hard for them to trade for a star, but what are they gonna add? Or can they make an addition, whether it is a star player or a bench guy, a Trevor Ariza or a Jay Crowder type player. What's the sense you have right now? Again, noting that they have a long way to go before they have to make these decisions. But it's December 14th right now. We're getting pretty close to Christmas, which is in some ways kind of feels like the moment in the NBA season where you kind of feel like what the shape of the league is. What's the sense you're getting right now about what they can do, other than say, I hope some guys start playing better?
Yeah, I mean, it is getting to that time of the season. There aren't many trades in December, but a lot of guys become available to be traded tomorrow, actually, on December 15th.
There we go. When you guys are listening to this, good timing.
Yes. Most of the signings from this past summer become eligible to be traded on Thursday. So Udonis Haslem and Caleb Martin on that list.
They're not trading UD.
They're not going to trade UD, most likely. Caleb Martin is playing really well. He's not a problem. He's not the problem with this roster. And then Dwayne Dedmon and Victor Oladipo become eligible to be traded January 15th. I think that's the date that I would say after that is when I think things really start to open up, because then everybody pretty much is eligible to be traded. And you have a really good read on the rest of the league and which teams are selling, which teams are buying. Like right now, there's so much. I mean, there's parity in the NBA right now, and there's so many teams that feel like they're in it even though they're not. But I think in a month, that list will get a little smaller. I think it's worth noting too that Victor Oladipo can't be traded without his consent this season. It's I've seen some hypothetical trades put out there of Victor Oladipo and I don't know, a pick or a second round pick for Jay Crowder. Victor Oladipo has control over that. He can say, I don't want to be sent to Phoenix, and that won't happen. So that's worth noting. But yeah, I think I would be surprised if this team doesn't make a trade. That's just my gut. I'm not reporting that, but that's just my gut.
Yeah.
How could they move forward with the way this looks right now? Even if it's a small trade, I'd be surprised if they don't make some type of move to shake things up and maybe try to add depth. Again, because yeah, you have young players on this team, but the window is right now. Jimmy is not getting any younger. He's already missing a lot of games. Kyle Lowry obviously is 36 years old. You have to go for it right now. And I'm not saying a move for a bench player is going to make them a championship team, but it definitely makes, if they get the right guy, it will definitely push them closer to that. So, yeah, I would be surprised if they don't make some type of move in the next few months.
Yeah, I mean, I think talking about championship with this team is at this point ludicrous, right?
Right.
The whole point of, like you said, the window is tight, but I don't think anyone thinks this is the last year of the window, right? I mean, obviously the Heat want to keep this rolling forever, right? You pass it from Jimmy to Bam and Tyler and all that kind of stuff. So making a move to get a guy, even if it's not enough to put you over Boston or Milwaukee, well, one, maybe an injury happens somewhere and all of a sudden you are. Or, again, I think both of us feel like the Heat are, just because of the way Jimmy plays, a better playoff team than a regular season team. But, if you get a role player at the trade deadline, it helps you going into next year, right? Even if that guy does not stick around, it or even if even if you're getting a guy who's on an expiring deal, I should say, the Heat have done that before, where they've gotten guys ahead of the trade deadline and realized they're a good fit. Obviously Victor Oladipo has been they got him as an expiring deal, and he's now something like a core piece, right? They've had him. Obviously, the injuries have kept him off the field for the most part, but he's out there and has been with the organization kind of for a long time now. So, yeah, I think there's. I mean, we know the way that the Heat operates, where they're always going to be aggressive. They're always going to pursue all angles, and this team needs it right now. Like that's kind of like they're not going to sell, right? And they're not going to just sit on their hands. So there's only one thing to do, and that's go get a guy.
I would say the tricky thing is like to add depth, you're probably trading away depth, right?
Because, yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're trading. You're more trading like fit for fit, right?
Yeah, because you're not gonna get away with adding a quality bench player by just trading Haywood Highsmith, right? Like it's gonna have to be like a Gabe Vincent or a Max Strus or a Victor Oladipo if he approves, right? Like it's gonna be depth for depth. So that's the tricky thing. And the luxury tax, I don't know if like they would be willing to go over the tax with the looming repeater tax, like just for a move like that. I'm not sure. So that also might be like an obstacle because they can't take in more money than they send out because they're so close to the tax line. So it is tricky, and you don't have so many guys that teams want, right? Like you're not going to trade your core 3, core 4. And then after that, like how many guys after that do teams really see as an asset? I don't know. So it's easy to you go in the trade machine and think of different ways you can get player X, but it isn't obviously that easy. But I still do expect some type of small move, at least. Because how could they not right now?
Yeah, and there's a lot of teams that are in the Heat station, right, where you're a 500 team that inevitably they're gonna kind of do nothing, right? And that's just not the way the Heat is wired. That's not what 20 years of Pat Riley, 20 plus years of 30 years. How long is Pat? 30 years of Pat Riley led Heat basketball? Not quite that. 25 years.
27 years, I think.
Yeah, 25 years of Pat Riley, something like that. Of Pat Riley led Heat basketball has told us that they're not going to just do nothing.
Yeah.
So what kind of move do you think? Like I don't think any of it. Like they're not going to get a star this year, right? Like
they're going to get Kevin Durant.
Yeah, exactly. Like what is
I'm kidding, by the way. I'm kidding.
What is the piece you feel like they should be looking at? Like what do you feel like? Again, this bench across the board has been bad, so it's not like there's like one weakness, right? You need to find a guy who is going to elevate the whole group. So what is it like? What's the piece there that can maybe hold up that unit a little bit better? What kind of guys are you have an eye on? You don't have to name names, but the type of players.
I mean, I'll say the names that have been like floating around as guys who might be available, right? Bojan Bogdanovic is one from Detroit that, his defense isn't great, but he just lit up the Heat for 30 plus points.
I like Bogdanovic.
He's a good scorer off the bench. He can provide that spark. This team they're not getting much offense from their bench. They need that. They need shooting. He's a veteran. He'd make sense, right? Saddiq Bey, which I'm kind of surprised by, but there was a report yesterday from The Athletic that Saddiq Bey is gettable for like the right price.
Saddiq Bey.
He would make a lot of sense. He could play there like in that small ball 4 role even, I think. He has that body for it. He's a good shooter. He's young. Again, I don't know if he'd have enough to get a guy like that, but I mean, these are just some names that they're interesting. Like they make sense for Miami right now and what they need. And if they get a guy like that, all of a sudden, they might not be able to make up the ground to get to a top 3 seed, but I mean, I would put them at the level of like a 4 3 seed in the East.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, the 4 is like, I think a reasonable expectation for where this team can get to. And then, like you said, you need a break or two. Fun fact about Saddiq Bey, he was silently committed to Miami at one point during his recruiting process. Yeah, and then it was the FBI thing happened, like I think he took a visit like the week before the FBI thing went down, and then ended up at Villanova instead, and had a very good career there. But he had the gym. He's from DC, so he's got the Jim Larinaga, Chris Caputo connection. So
okay.
So I'm sure he would enjoy coming to Miami.
I was gonna say, so he wouldn't be against it then.
Yeah, exactly.
Another name that, and this is not one that's floating around, but just one that makes sense to me. And again, I don't know if they have enough to do something like this, and I don't know if they have the picks to get this done. But Kelly Olynyk would make a lot of sense for this team.
Having a good year.
Having a good year. He could play as a backup 5. He could play next to Bam, as we know.
Yeah.
He fits both of those roles. He's a good shooter. He would plug so many holes for this team right now that I think it just makes a lot of sense. But the thing is, Utah is probably going to want picks with considering where they are right now as a rebuilding team. So, and I don't know if they probably won't be willing to give up first round picks for Kelly Olynyk, but he's just a name that just makes sense to me. Makes too much sense.
Yeah. I think the common thread you're kind of hitting with some of those guys, they're all scorers, and the biggest thing, obviously, the Heat is, I'm sure, feels like they're missing from the bench is Tyler Hero, right? Like, he could cover up a lot of the ills with the bench, and the bench in a lot of ways last year went as he went, right? His awesome nights, like, it doesn't matter if Max Strus is hitting shots, right? If Tyler is scoring 22 off the bench, like that it covers up, like we said, they have a unique mix of guys where it's a lot of undrafted guys, a lot of former two-way guys, not a lot, no one on that bench at any point in their career has been like, I would say has like had a reputation as a scorer. And, you look at benches across the league, a lot of times there's veterans who at one point were maybe like the lead guard somewhere, or, have that reputation as the scoring punch 6-man who maybe never is more than a 6-man because the defense stinks. The Heat has all the, again, the 3-point shooting's been bad from guys this year, but you got Max Strus and Duncan Robinson. Like, those are classic bench archetypes, right? The shooter off the bench. Dwayne Dedmon has been bad this year, but he's classic, bench archetype, backup center.
He was good the last few years. Like, Dwayne Dedmon was really good the last 2 years for his role.
Gabe Vincent is classic backup point guard, right? Undersized, like, bench archetype there. But the one they're missing is that scorer, and obviously Bogdanovich would fill that. I think Sadiq Bey, although I think of him more as a shooter than just a creative, that is a guy who had scored 40 points in an NBA game last year, right? Like, he's a rock solid scorer and young, and like that's the guy, like, because of how old he is and how good he is right now, like, that's kind of, I don't know, feels like the home run addition you could make. Like, I don't know, can't you see him having a Danny Green type career, right? Like, that's, he's got a chance. I mean, he's still young and good. And even Olynyk, who's obviously a center, is in some ways, like, he fits that archetype of the guy who can be a scorer, because we've seen that from, he's obviously older now, but he can shoot, but he can also create a little bit. Like, I think that's always been an underrated part of Kelly's game, is his ability to get into the high post and hit tough twos, right? Like, that guy had a signature moment in the NBA playoffs when he knocked the Wizards out in Game 7 of the second round a couple of years ago. Like, they're badly missing that guy, and I think that is the piece that it feels like they need. Again, it's all easier said than done, though.
It is.
Like, Jay Crowder has obviously been an object of fascination, but I really kind of don't know how much Jay Crowder does for this group. Obviously he helps, but like you said, Caleb Martin has been the least of this team's issues, and Jay Crowder felt like, when we were talking about him in the offseason, it was like, can he be the PJ replacement? Well, they've got that. They got to find something else.
Right, and like, if they get Jay Crowder, do you take Caleb out of the starting lineup? Like,
right,
I don't
and then
know.
you just got another guy who's not like a great scorer off the bench. Like, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the right move would be to put Caleb to the bench, because he can at least, like, score, I guess, better than Jay Crowder can. He can kind of fit a little bit of that role. Maybe that's the benefit of that type of move. But man, it feels tough to pull Caleb out of the starting group right now with the way he's playing, right? Like, that just feels wrong. So yeah, I think you're right. Like, it's not that they need a 4 at this point. They need some depth. They need scoring depth off the bench, offense. And yeah, that's why all those names, like, that's the common thread that we just, like, pointed out, is they can all score, and they provide that.
All right, you got to get out to shoot around. I got to get out to Panthers practice, so I think we should wrap this up. You can follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony_Chiang. He's got the whole road trip, or you're not going to Mexico City?
I'm not going to Mexico City. I was in Indy a few nights ago, and then OKC today, and then Houston tomorrow, and then home.
There you go. You can follow me on Twitter at DBWilson2. Kind of still football season, I guess, for the most part. Signing day coming up. Big commitment for the Canes on Tuesday night, getting Ruben Bain, who, a reigning defensive player of the year at the Herald, and I feel pretty confident. We have not made any decisions yet, but feel pretty confident he's going to win that award again this year with 28 sacks already. The state championship coming up. So
I almost cursed.
Yeah.
28 sacks?
Yeah. So,
oh, my God.
I'll tell you what, a lot of high school coaches inflate the numbers, right? You covered high schools at one point. You know that when you're doing all county, guys will be like, he threw for 33,000
yards.
Yeah, 3,300 yards. Like, he didn't. I've seen Ruben Bain play a lot, and every time I watch him, he gets like 2 or 3 sacks. So 28 doesn't sound that far-fetched to me.
They have the 5th best recruiting class right now, according to 24/7.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So, we'll see. I mean, they got some guys they got to hang on to, and we'll see how much more they can add. But it's going to be a good recruiting class, no doubt.
The U is back.
All right. Thanks, as always, for listening, and we will talk to you guys next week.